This is disaster.
Hey, Malcolm! You heard it was dress up day on the show.
I see we're back to Hawaii.
That's right. Can we go somewhere besides Hawaii? Where else could we go?
We could do the islands. We could do the Caribbean.
That's too warm. Can we go somewhere cold? Can we go to Orkney?
Oh yeah, this definitely
This is style in Orkney or the Inner Hebrides.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
This is what people wear all the time. They're known for this. Colorful.
Listen, can you pull it together? It's Try Before We Die. It's a regular episode night here with Colin and Malcolm. And we appreciate you tuning in, and we really appreciate all the subscribes we've got. Thanks, everybody.
Excellent.
Mal, it's your turn. Let's get a bottle. Let's get it opened and breathing. And then we can talk a little bit more about your choice of clothes. Okay.
Ooh, 190.
190?
190.
That puts us on the back wall. I'm going to go get a bottle of whiskey.
Go get that bottle of whiskey.
It's close to the bottom. Because 198. Yeah. Here we go.
All right, go.
I got a guess. Okay, bottle 190. Ooh, which brings us to the bottom of this shelf. 88, 89, 90. Not our first time with a Bowmore, but our first time with a Glen Master release, which is an independent labeling of a known distillery. So we have a 14-year-old Bowmore, cask number 1154, distilled in 1990, bottled in 2004. So what we know about Bowmore is, of course, it's an Isla distillery. And the town of Bowmore or Bowmore, and who knows about my pronunciation, but it's considered the capital of that region. Really just a small village. Sits on the western coast, picks up a lot of ocean breeze. And this is part of their single barrel bottlings. Doesn't tell us how many barrels. We do see a 46 ABV. So we should have if tradition holds, a gentle, smoky, peaty whiskey with perhaps some maritime elements. The Bowmore, Glen Master, independent bottling, 14-year-old, 46% ABV with a nice Scottish tartan seal up top. We'll see everybody back at the bar. Did you hear, Mel?
I did hear.
A Bowmore.
A Bowmore.
A Bowmore.
I would say Bowmore.
I don't know.
Maybe
We're not experts. We're just having fun.
Some of us could correct us.
But it's a Glen Master release, which means we know it's an independent bottling. They purchased from Bowmore cask number 1154, finished aging it, did whatever it was theirs.
Yep.
And at a certain point, 14 years, in October of 2004, they bottled it at 46% ABV. So we know that it probably wasn't, a cask strength, and so they brought it down to 46. But we also feel good about these 46s in terms of bringing out some flavor, some elements, some profiles.
A little bit more robust.
A little bit of something in there. What do we know about Bowmores? We know them to be a maritime whiskey, a peaty, smoky whiskey, with perhaps some brine. Hard telling without trying.
Correct.
Why don't we say we open it and get it breathing?
Go for it.
All right. Right, because that's the deal. Try before we die, right? We open these bottles.
Oh, I like the little tartan and the little... You
see that?
Metal. We have to take that metal off there somehow.
Oh, this could...
Oh, it does. Yeah. Oh.
Let's see what happens. It's got a nice little... This one actually might work.
Oh, look at that.
I might be able to get that one just to go. There we go.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
Look at that. The old Whiskey Wars. Oh, yeah, back in the Glen Master battles of the Bowmore.
The 14s.
Yeah. What's the word? Give us a different one.
I'm going low and subdued.
Oh, okay, subdued. I like that one. Here we go. It's like somebody's knocking at your door.
On my glass.
Or not feeling so good.
Feeling great.
There's a song, right? I'm not feeling so good. I'm feeling all right. Who's that by? Is that Joe Cocker?
I have no idea.
I don't know. The Bowmore, Glen Master, independent bottling, 14 years old, distilled May of 90. I know exactly where I was in May of 1990. May 5th and 6th of 1990, I was in California.
The dead.
Yeah, I was in California at the Dominguez Hills Soccer Complex seeing the Grateful Dead for 2 days with Keon, who has passed away. So during some time in that month, this was being processed through as a clear spirit, put into casks. 14 years later in October, it was put into this bottle.
I was probably at Panucci's.
May of 90.
Yeah.
You know, and so I turned 21, actually. That's the year I turned 21. Is that true? Yes, I turned 21 in May of 1990 in the passenger seat of a Subaru Legacy station wagon on the side of the road with Keon, celebrating my 21st birthday with a 12-pack of MGD, Miller Genuine Draft.
How far you've come along.
Well, it was the best we could get on the side of the road in Pennsylvania on our way back. My birthday's the middle of May. And that's what I recall about 1990. And then shortly thereafter, I was back at Panucci's.
Didn't one of our crew members go get MGDs for... Oh, no. High Lifes.
Oh.
I'll go get you beer.
Yeah, G-Man came through for us one night. And though we tease him about it, and he deserves it, it certainly was better than what he could have got.
True. I know.
And I think his boat might have sank if he got anything less.
I know Potter and Deuce enjoyed.
There was that one other kid, Jesse.
Yes.
Steel Trap. Okay, so we've got the Bowmore, 14-year-old private labeling through Glen Master. We have a few Glen Masters in the bar, but it's our first time opening one to my knowledge.
I was going to say, this is my first trip with a Glen
Right,
Master.
we've done the Gordon and MacPhails.
Yes.
And there are a couple of others. Of course, there's the MacPhails, there's Gordon and MacPhail, and there's the Black Adder series. So private labelings aren't unheard of, and they're fairly common. But it's our first, our Bowmore. I know.
Now, do you like the idea of private labeling?
I do. This is what I think about it. The distillery has a goal in mind when they put their label, their name on a whiskey. And we've talked about this, because the variance is related to Mother Nature in terms of the tree growing, in terms of what it held before, in terms of the weather that year with the grain. All these things take place, right? And so they may find casks that don't live up to their expectation. Now, that doesn't mean it's not a good whiskey, but it just says, this cask isn't consistent enough with all these other casks that we're putting together to release a 14-year-old or an 18-year-old or this named variety. Mm-hmm. And so we have these casks over here that just don't fit the bill for us, which are fine, and I believe that they allow people to come in and go, well, we have these two, this one, 4 over here, that are this old, or that we're just feeling that isn't going to age to match what we're going for. And so they allow private labelers to come in and buy those casks. So I don't struggle with it at all. In fact, I find sometimes you can get some very unique experiences by buying these single cask independent labels.
All right.
Fair?
Yep. No.
Okay. All right. So we've got this Glen Master. I like Bowmore. Probably to find out it's Bowmore, but I like Bowmore. Pronunciation. Got a preference?
I think Bowmore.
Okay, we'll go with Bowmore. All right.
Oh, yes.
All right. So for color. Almost as if it's a grain, like a barley, like you'd see in a feed storage, a feed house.
Light?
It's very light. It's not as light as they come. It's got an element of blonde to it, not picking up too many red hues. Certainly much more gold than red. Very light amber if we were going to go that traditional amber conversation.
I'd have a hard time stretching to amber.
Right. But very light if
Very
we were
light.
going to go that way.
And not quite yellow enough to be straw.
No.
But I will say this, and this is the odd thing, and I've shook this glass multiple times. There's like nothing residual coming down that glass.
I mean, I can see little pieces of it, but it is sort of holding together. Oh, my light may be different than yours.
Yeah, okay.
My light might be different than yours. It's breathing down.
Yeah.
It's like when you create condensation on a window by breathing on it, and then because the weather is so good, it immediately goes away. It like breaks down like in the same downward
I can see
pattern.
that. Mine doesn't.
Yep.
Mine doesn't do that. Mine is not.
So again, we're looking for traditionally an Isla should be smoky and peaty with some maritime hints or even
Seaside.
strengths. Seaside. Ready?
Yep.
Wow. Oof. There it is. But remember that first nosing should be intense.
Yeah, that cleaned my sinuses out. That completely cleaned my sinuses out.
And it mellowed right out. But I still pick up some of that.
You can pick up that seaside.
Oh, the distiller man come. Ho! It's like what do they call those things?
A song.
Shanty.
We're gonna say shandy.
Yeah, the distiller man is in here.
You can definitely. Yeah, you can pick up the sea.
Well,
and I could tell you.
And if you give it a rotation and get it to breathe, and then take a nosing, it really penetrates.
Yeah, there's something in there that's just like. I mean, it's good because I have allergies going at the moment. There is something that definitely just cleaned my sinuses out.
It's not super smoky.
No.
It's not super peaty. It's almost like slightly medicinal. But I mean truly that. Slightly medicinal.
I'll knock that up a couple notches. There's definitely a medicinal feel to this. And you can pick up that peat right. It's almost like underneath as you're breathing it in. Now, maybe the fact, as I said, sinuses. I'm having some allergy issues at the moment, but you can definitely pick up something there's that peat underlying.
I'm excited to try it to see what Bowmore said. Not quite for what we're going for in terms of all these other barrels in its match, and yet at the same time, Glen Master going exactly what we were looking for. To single barrel release this under our label and name at a 46 ABV.
Cheers.
Cheers. So I left it in the front of the mouth for longer than you. And the peat really began to expose itself after probably about 2 or 3 seconds. It broke through and it didn't intensify. Once it found its landing place in the front, it just carried through consistently to the back. And I'm talking probably about 20%. I'm not talking huge. I'm talking a 20% peat experience that came back with some spice on the backside.
Okay, so I'm glad you touched that because my initial taste as it hit the front of my tongue was a little sweet, and then there was a spike of flavor, and I couldn't really grip myself around, but it was almost like tingly.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna have to say that's that spice you're talking about.
Yep.
And it really was tip of tongue, and then it sort of like just like coats your tongue, but there isn't really. There's no real heavy notes. It just sort of just lingers and then disappears, except for that one spike that I was talking about. Just after it gets off the tip of your tongue, it almost like lit my nasal passage up.
It's not smoky.
I wouldn't call it smoky.
I would say this is more peaty than smoky. I find it more spicy than sweet. You know, what we know about the Bowmore is that they generally don't shoot for a heavily smoked peaty whiskey. They are more into the nuance and the approachability of those profiles. And so this matches up really well for what they're going for traditionally. And so I wonder what they didn't see in here, or why Glen Master was allowed to purchase this, because I find this to be pretty consistent with some Bowmores that I've had in the past. And at that 14-year age point, again, I find it not inconsistent. Like, I guess what I'm saying, Malcolm, is I recognize this as a Bowmore or a Bowmore.
I'm not going to play that game and say, oh yeah, I recognize it. But what I will say though, there is something unique about this in the sense that you can pick up. It is so different from anything else that I've tried over the past several weeks. So different. I can't really pick out that smokiness, but there's a hint of it.
Mm-hmm.
Can't really pick out the peatiness, but there's a hint of it. But there is something in there that I just can't even wrap my head around, that I'm not thoroughly enjoying, in the sense that it's a taste that I'm not coming to grips with. But I can't figure it out, because every time I take a sip.
Let me ask you a question. And I get to be way off, everybody. Any anise in here?
Ooh.
Do you know what I mean?
Licorice.
Right, like a black licorice, right?
Ooh.
Like not a sweet licorice, but like I wonder if there's some anise in here.
That's a good call, because there is something in it that I'm not wrapping my head around.
Right, super familiar with, that you don't seek out on your own.
And I'm not truly enjoying it.
And that if somebody put on a label and with hints of anise, you might be like, oh, I'm not quite sure where I'm at with that. Right?
Correct.
Right. I'm not struggling with this whiskey at all, but I agree with you that there's something else happening here besides this 20% for me. There's 20% peat, these spicy notes. And there's this thing about that it's not sweet. But is there this piece of candy in here that's not sweet?
And it's that part of it that I'm struggling with.
It's like a moxie, right? That's like a cola that's not. Like anise is like a licorice that's not.
Correct.
Right, but there are enough pieces of it to be like, that's almost a soda, that's almost a candy.
Yeah, I mean,
this is almost a sweet whiskey, but it's not.
So there.
Yeah.
You know, you can pick up, like I said, you can pick out a little bit of the smoke, you can pick out a little bit of the peat, but there is a taste there that really, if you don't like it, or it's not in your wheelhouse, you will struggle with this. And I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around it. Like, am I enjoying this? Or am I enjoying this for the show? Or it's not as bad as I think it is, and I'm just trying to freaking come to grips with it. Because it's definitely there, and you can't and it lingers in your mouth after you finish tasting it. Every time you like I can still taste that. Still taste it.
You know, and it might be psychosomatic, but I do feel like there's something about this anise, this black licorice, this idea that there's this unsweetened candy in here, married to this slightly peated whiskey, this wispy smokiness that might be there with these spicy undertones.
Definitely with the spicy undertone.
Yeah.
I'll give you that part of it.
Right, so as I think about what we have here with this orange chocolate, this dark chocolate, this Vermont cheddar, and these olives, I'm going to tell you, Malcolm, I'm going to have a couple of olives with this.
You do that.
Because it comes across as a fairly dry whiskey. Olives are considered good with like a dry martini.
Yep.
And it's a nice seaside whiskey. In other words, the Bowmore is a maritime whiskey. So I'm hoping the brine and the olives will match up with what a Bowmore is and what this particular whiskey is presenting, which is relatively dry with an unsweet candy element and some spice with some smoky peat, some earthy tones.
All right.
So I'm hoping the olive works.
I am going to go the easy route, and I'm going to take some water to see if I can like mask this taste or bring out the real flavor of this drink.
Yeah. I'm excited because we were at, 46, right?
Correct.
46 ABV, so water's not inappropriate, and I'm curious about the brine. I'm going to just get some olive brine here in the bottom of this bowl.
But this is a very unique tasting whiskey. Very unique.
And I love green olives and pimento, so. So I want to go first because I'm impressed is a big word. I am not disappointed in the pairing with that briny green olive in this Isla whiskey. In a way that I've had green olives with lots of whiskeys before, not necessarily on the show, everybody, but I do like olives. Perhaps one of the better times a green olive has paired with a whiskey. The brininess really seemed, the saltiness, right, Brian? Seemed to match up well with what's happening here. Didn't mask anything. If anything, it enhanced some of the spiciness, but all the other notes remained the same. How was the water?
So, I enjoyed this better with the water, but I will take it one step further. If you put one ice cube in this, I think that's where it would hit the money for me. Because I think some of it is maybe the feeling of warmth, the feeling of like this little bit of heat that I'm getting. Something that I'm not truly coming to grips with. There's a lot of unknowns for me here, in the sense that they're maybe not in my wheelhouse, maybe something I would not gravitate to. But there's something there that needs to be unlocked. And I think an ice cube would be the answer, because I think you would get that cooling sensation that would take care of the underlining anise, as you point out, would help it. Because when you put the water to this, you get a flat start, there's a spike, and then it drops back down.
Okay, so I appreciate what you've said. They're asking us to consider a hint of bourbon and slightly peaty. So I think we've absolutely picked up on the slightly peaty. Now the hint of bourbon obviously suggests a former bourbon cask.
Yep. Which I think for me is a stretch to find.
And so I will say this to you about the ice cube. Yes, and it's a warm, humid day in southern New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And so a cool drink will always be refreshing.
Correct.
Right. Well, absolutely happy with the brine combination, and I'm actually going to do that again.
All right.
Just to explore that further. The 46 ABV, you would do water regularly with this?
Yes.
Yep.
I think this is one I would say if I was to drink this, I would want water or an ice cube.
Yep. And again, everybody, this is that idea of that you drink what makes sense to you, and don't allow somebody else to crush those feelings
Correct.
inside of you, right?
Correct.
If you bought it, you paid for it, or you were served it, you should enjoy it. And so, Mal, you're wrong. No, of course, Mal should drink the way that it makes the most sense to him, and I'll do the same, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the whole
Right.
point.
Yep.
You learn and explore to figure out how you're going to enjoy something.
So, you know what we're going to explore now? We're going to explore Lithuania. In Lithuania, they have a cheers. But according to our very educated and research-directed crew and the depths of everything,
I don't even want to know how you're going to do this one.
that means cheers.
Yep,
Aren't you married to a Lithuanian?
I am.
All right. Well, you should do it.
We should do it together. Because I want to see it.
Yeah, I'm in. Eswekata. Eswekata.
Hey, Swekata.
Yeah, no. Do you not like olives?
No.
Well, that you should have an olive because that is
I want
fantastic.
nothing to do with olives.
I don't know about fantastic's a big word too.
It is.
But it's really good.
This is interesting,
The brine matches up very well with this Bowmore.
but it very is much licorice based.
Thanks for bringing it back to the anise. There's something about this unsweetened candy in here,
And I think that's what I struggle with.
which is why I didn't want to go for a chocolate.
No. Or the cheese. No way.
The cheese was going to be perhaps too delicate. And so I thought that the brine of the olive would be complementary because it is also a fairly recognizable flavor.
And it's got some bite to it.
And so the seaside of the olive and the seaside of this whiskey really did the trick for me.
Water definitely helped it, without a doubt. But you know, and again, it goes back to the thing: different bottles, different freaking tastes. Everyone's not going to be the same.
Yep.
The whole point of having different whiskeys is to have different tastes, and this is completely different. This is, like I said, over all the episodes we've done, this is probably the first one I've like actually come unglued, like a little bit unstuck. Like, how do I figure this one out? Where am I going to go with this? Different, definitely licorice.